Hi YouTube, I'm back. I'm in my new spot. So glorious. It's a room with a bed in it. That's all I really need. I'm going to talk about something that's not super fun. It's about growing up trans and transphobic. Specifically my experience of growing up trans and transphobic, because this is who I am, and I think it's important to get my story out there, because it's a story that I don't hear spoken very often. So when I say that I grew up trans and transphobic, what does that mean? A lot of folks will say that they knew they were trans when they were very young, that they put themselves in the closet for various reasons, didn't feel safe coming out, blah, blah, blah. The first memory I have of my desire to be female was probably 3 or 4 years old. I didn't have the awareness at the time to know what it really meant, and it wasn't particularly strong. My female identity has never been particularly powerful. At times it's fleeting, sometimes it's extremely strong and very powerful. My dysphoria is very strong, but most of the time it's just sort of there. It doesn't really say much. That first time was one of those fleeting moments when it strengthened. It was in the bathtub. I was playing around with the suds and hiding various body parts and seeing how that felt, and it was pretty nice. Later on, as I aged, my identity grew in strength, and it stabilized, and one of the first things I remember really strongly about being trans and my trans identity and my want/need, it started as a want to be female, and it turned into a need over the years. Was probably third grade is when a really, really strong, memory for me. That was when I was working on the computer, and my teacher was like, multitasking is a really female brain trait, and I just felt like $1 million, because here's this woman who knew what I was going through, or so I thought at the time. But some other things had happened too, like walking around Chicago with my parents. My parents are from Northern Illinois. I'm from Wisconsin. When I was younger, I would walk around, we would walk around the city to look like maybe we're looking at the Christmas displays, right? The ones at Marshall's. Whatever. What's the Boston store now? Whatever. We're looking at the Christmas displays because they're always really cool every year. And, moving from one to the other, I would, walk like a girl. I'd swing my hips and stuff. And, my mom would call me out on it, and that was one of the first things that taught me that my identity as female, despite having a body that was assigned male at birth, was wrong. Then later in 4th grade, as we were going around a circle in class and everyone was describing who they wanted to be when they grew up, I think I told this story already, but I'll summarize. As we're going around from person to person, it comes to me, and I'm like, well, I want to be a lesbian when I grow up. And, the entire room erupts in laughter. Ha ha ha, look at the silly boy saying he wants to be a lesbian. And, one of the other girls in the class was like, well, you're missing a couple of really key parts. And that had a twofold effect of, telling me that my identity is wrong, and impossible to achieve. And there was just that little seed there, those couple of things that just sort of planted themselves in my mind to tell me that what I wanted and who I thought I was, or who I thought I should be, was wrong and was bad and was undesirable. So as I'm growing up, my identity strengthens, as it does for most trans people. As they age, their identity gets stronger, and their need to be who they are increases in urgency. And I experienced the same thing. The issue with me being transphobic is that, I desperately wanted this need to be a girl to go away. And of course it never did. So I would try to ignore it, or, do something masculine, or try and be a dude more. And of course it wouldn't go away, with the entire intention to be, to make it go away, to make the need to be female go away. And of course it wouldn't work, because this is how trans identities work. I know this now, I didn't know at the time. But because of that, because I was trying to make it go away, and it wasn't going away, I felt like a complete failure, along with feeling like a, worthless human being and a perv. I felt like a failure. So I had this huge hole, this void of self-worth, because, society was telling me constantly that I am a less than, that my identity isn't real, that I need to do all of these things that I'm really not comfortable doing. I need to assume these roles in life that I'm not comfortable assuming, and all of this stuff just sort of compounds on itself, and compounds. Other things too, like movies, the classic example of everyone's favorite, gay flick, Rocky Horror. Look, Frankenfurter in the original, it's a dude. Plus, he's a dude who thinks he's a girl, and he's from another planet. I'm like, great, so I'm a fucking space alien. Awesome. Fantastic. It does great things for my self-worth. Mrs. Doubtfire, another great example. The only reason that this guy is gonna, masquerade as a girl is because he's been, willfully separated from his children, and it's killing him inside. So he's been driven to the brink of madness, and that is the only possible reason he could ever want to be, not his sex assigned at birth. It's like, oh my god. And then of course, there's the cherry on top of this really disturbing cake, Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, right? Exactly. Where you have, a trans character who's not, it's never said that he's trans, that Hannibal is trans. However, the prancing around his bedroom scene has a lot of the trappings of early discovery of trans identity. I mean, aside from the whole, killing and eating people thing, I did a lot of that stuff. Hiding my junk between my thighs and stuff like that. Wishing that my body was more feminine in shape, things like that. That, when I saw that movie, that broke me. That was when I really realized that how I am perceived in this world is very negative, very negative. That if you're a dude who wants to be a girl, you're basically a serial killer. Great! positive role models, folks. Wonderful. So, growing up with this, with all of this weight, in your head, sort of like, like I said, trying to not feel this need to be the other gender and failing constantly because it's not possible to feel like your sex assigned at birth when you're trans. It's just not. But of course, not knowing that it's not possible, not at the time. So you're desperately trying not to. You can't not. So you feel like a complete failure. You're worthless, an entirely worthless human being. So then that has fun things happen later in life. This is all before puberty. So puberty rolls around, and at this point, I'm like, I am so sure that what I need is to just man up and be a dude and like just dude harder, that I'm like looking forward to puberty, looking forward to an androgenic male puberty. And they play the puberty video in 6th grade, like, hey, weird stuff's gonna happen, blah blah blah, it's gonna be weird. And when my voice drops, that breaks me, like in a really fundamental way. Silence of the Lambs was bad. This was destruction of my psyche. Like, the innocent old me was gone. And I didn't tell my mom about it at the time, but I was a complete hellion at this point in my life, and I was just like, my psyche fractured at this point. I was stuck in this body that was doing things I didn't want it to do, and I had absolutely no vocabulary or information or knowledge on how to process this. So I'm just like, and I look at all of my classmates, and they're all like doing perfectly fine with puberty, and I'm like, I'm just not handling this well. So I guess so again, we compound some more self-loathing onto me. I guess I'm just, everybody's going through this weird shit, so clearly everyone else is handling this much better than I am, so there's something wrong with me. That was the conclusion that I came to. So how is any of this transphobic? This is all internalized transphobia. This is my acceptance of society's view of trans people as aberrations, as sick, as mentally disturbed, as inadequate, not worthy of love or even life, and internalizing it. And it wrecks ya. It's not cool. And the thing about it is, it's not temporary. This is programming built into me from a young age that I'm still trying to undo pretty much every day. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Some days are good, and some days are, like this one, are bad. I have a bunch more notes on what I want to say, but there's a whole thing with me, especially, dating a woman and marrying her and trying to do the white middle class husband thing, and that not working at all. Sex as the wrong gender is real weird. Obviously, you know, the first while, it's fun because it's experimental and new, and it's like, that's a feeling I never felt before. That's kind of fun. Endorphins, yay. You know, and then there's like this, for me at least, I have to only speak for myself, as a binary trans woman who is pre-op and is not non-op. This creeping realization of wrongness, you know, starts to come into your sex life, that things just start to feel off, you know, actions and then feelings and then parts just start to feel wrong. That's rough. That started happening a few years ago, probably I'd say about 4 years ago. The creeping wrongness started coming in to our to our sex life, and at that point, you know, I still didn't want to acknowledge what was going on, despite this wrongness, very pointed wrongness. So instead, I reject these feelings, and, you know, because I want to please my partner, I start doing what I've called utility sex, you know, because the sexual acts are expected, and I wanted to make her feel good, so I would just kind of put up with it, and there was joy in sex once in a while, but mostly it was just joyless, mechanical work. Eventually I just started to try and make her feel as good as possible, because there was no positive feeling associated with it for me anymore. And that was when the start of the drop off of desire. That's when it gets really, and you know, now I understand that as dysphoria, finally creeping its way into my sex life. And at that point, with the desire drop off, you know, I couldn't deal with doing the deed. I couldn't deal with what was downstairs. I couldn't deal with the act of, you know, male-female copulation. And that leaves your partner questioning, you know, her desirability. You know, that ends up weighing on her self-esteem and her self-confidence, and that's just a terrible place for everyone to be. So all of these things make me really, I really, really, really want folks who are trans or questioning or are pretty sure, but they're thinking about maybe staying in the closet for convenience sake. You know, I did that, and it was bad. It was really bad, and I don't recommend it. I realize that not everyone can come out immediately, but you can at least start transitioning and, you know, stay in boy mode or girl mode and, you know, just kind of sit and stew on hormones for a while, before you're ready to, you know, come out to folks. And these are things that I didn't realize growing up, that one, when I was that age, I had no idea that, you know, puberty blockers existed, or that there was such a thing as cross-sex hormone therapy, and, you know, that the body that I desired, that I needed, was achievable. You know, I was aware of people who got sex change operations, and I dismissed it out of hand because, you know, at the time I was like, if it works, why isn't everyone running around being female? Because clearly this is something that everyone is dealing with, just dealing with it better than I am. You know, this was the mentality. excuse me, the mentality that I grew up with internally. There was something wrong with me, and everyone else probably felt the same way, but they were just dealing with it better than I was. So, yeah, don't stay in the closet. If you can't come out to people, try and find some community online. It's really, really, really easy nowadays to find other trans folks and talk about your feelings and discuss questioning and what it feels like to be trans, because everyone feels it in a different way. Every trans person I've ever talked to has felt their identity in a different way because it exists in our subconscious. It manifests in a unique way with every person. And go talk to some folks. I'm sure you'll find some people who feel a little bit similarly, in at least some percentage, and you can find that similarity between each other and some common ground and start to figure things out. Don't stay in the closet because you're afraid. That's the worst reason to stay in the closet, is because of fear. Fear doesn't do anything good for you. It doesn't help you. It's not actually something you can harness. It's just a detriment. And while it may feel like the easier path right now, it's not. Anyway, thank you for listening to my enormous rant, and my heart-to-heart on growing up trans and transphobic. Have a good day.